The House will come to order. Today, Representative Camacho will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, is everyone ready? All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Shebo, please call the roll.
Representatives Armagost, Bacon, AML Bacon,
Excused.
Barone, Byrd, Representative Byrd,
Excused.
Basenecker, Rep. Basenecker,
Excused.
Bottoms, Bradfield, Bradley, Brooks,
President online.
Brown, Representative Brown,
Excused.
Caldwell, Rep. Caldwell,
Excused.
Camacho, Carter, Clifford, DeGraff, Duran, English, Representative English,
Excused.
Espinoza, Foray, Representative Foray,
Excused.
Froelich, Rep. Froelich,
Excused. Oh, there she is.
Garcia, Representative Garcia,
Excuse. Oh,
Garcia Sander, Gilchrist, Gonzalez, Hamrick, Hartsook, Representative Hartsook,
excused.
Jackson, Rep. Jackson, Johnson, Joseph, Kelty, Leader, Lindsay, Representative Lindsay,
Excused.
Linstead, Luck, Lukens, Mabry, we'll give it to him. Marshall, Representative Marshall,
Excused.
Martinez, Morrow,
Here.
McCormick, Pascal, Representative Pascal,
Excused.
Phillips, Puglisi, Richardson, Ricks. She's here. Oh. Representative Ricks.
Excused.
Yeah, that's okay. Rutnell, Ryden, Sirota, Smith, Soper, Stewart K, Stewart R, Story, Sukla, Taggart, Titone, Valdez A, Velasco, Weinberg, Wilford, Winter, Woodrow is excused, Woog, Zokai, and Madam Speaker.
Here. With 61 present, 4 excused, we do have a quorum. Representative Camacho.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
And since I am unprepared for this morning, I decided to start my week off by giving a dad joke of the day. So, after an unsuccessful harvest, why did the farmer decide to try a career in music? Because he was told he had sick beats. All right. I move that the Journal of Friday, January 31st, 2025 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Representative Camacho, I love dad jokes, so bring more. Members, seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of the journal as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no? The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Members, I do need for you to take your seats. We do have business this morning. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to proceed out of order for consideration of resolutions.
Seeing no objection, we will proceed out of order for consideration of resolution. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Joint Resolution 1009.
House Joint Resolution 1009 by Representatives Bacon and English, also Senators Coleman and Exum, concerning recognizing February of 2025 as Black History Month.
Representative English.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that House Joint Resolution HJR 25-1009 be read at length.
Representative English, I'll have you restate the motion. You want to move the resolution and then ask for it to be read at length.
Sorry.
No worries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move House Joint Resolution HJR 25-1009.
And we will have it read at length. Mr. Schiebel.
Thank you.
Whereas every February, the United States acknowledges and honors that Americans of African descent, through their contributions and sacrifices, have played an indelible role in shaping this country. And whereas, even though race, and thus the designations of Negro, Black, Colored, and African American, has been recognized as a construct originally built to separate and disenfranchise people based on skin color that was associated with people originating from the African continent, there is a shared culture derived from that history that should be seen and elevated. And whereas in 1915, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, known as the father of Black history, first set out to designate a time to promote and educate people about Black history and culture, as he believed that history created by Black people, despite attempts to limit their potential, is a critical part of American history. And whereas Dr. Woodson founded the organization known as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, or ASALH, galvanizing fellow historians to envision a week-long celebration to encourage the coordinated teaching of Black history in public schools because it was not woven into the fabric of the American history taught year-round. And whereas in 1926, Dr. Woodson was successful in creating Negro History Week, a week celebrated during the second week of February, as it coincided with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, both of whom ensured emancipation. And whereas Dr. Woodson believed that Negro History Week would not place limitations on, but would focus and broaden the nation's consciousness of the importance of learning Black history and make the celebration of Black history in the academic field of history a serious area of study. And whereas by the late 1960s, due to demonstrations concerning racial injustice, inequality, and poverty during the Civil Rights Movement, Negro History Week evolved into what is now known as Black History Month. And whereas calling upon Americans to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history, in 1976, President Gerald R. Ford officially recognized Black History Month during the nation's bicentennial. And whereas the Association for the Study of African American Life and History celebrates its 110th anniversary this year, and designated the 2025 Black History Month theme as African Americans in Labor, focusing on the various and profound ways that work and working of all kinds, free and unfree, skilled and unskilled, vocational and voluntary, intersect with the collective experiences of Black people and the American people. And whereas the labor journey of Black Americans in Colorado began before Colorado was ratified as a state, with enslaved persons brought to Colorado to support and labor for settlers, including some of Colorado's founders. Nevertheless, many escaped and former slaves found their way to Colorado in pursuit of the freedom to read, build families, and develop opportunities. And whereas Nat Love and James Beckworth, often called mountain men, or the pejorative to white cowhands, cowboys, cultivated skills in mountaineering, fur trapping, and driving cattle in Colorado to contribute to the settling of the West. And whereas former slaves Barney Ford and Clara Brown built hotels, shelters, restaurants, and other businesses to support burgeoning mining trades in Colorado, their wealth and influence helped them shape the way Colorado would be ratified as a state in the Union. And whereas a Black man, Henry O. Wagoner, brother-in-law to Barney Ford and mentor to the sons of Frederick Douglass, was appointed a clerk in the first Colorado state legislature. And whereas Representatives John T. Gunnell and Joseph H. Stewart, Colorado's first and second Black representatives, served Arapahoe County from 1881 to 1883 and from 1895 to 1897, respectively. Representative Gunnell sponsored House Bill 57 in 1881, which concerned tenants at will or monthly renters. And Representative Stewart worked on a bill to ensure equal access to public places, regardless of a person's race. And whereas in 1910, O.T. Jackson joined the movement to homestead and founded Deerfield, Colorado, a community that exemplified the ingenuity, industry, and work ethic of Black Coloradans. High agricultural demand during World War I proved a boon for the community, which grew squash, pumpkins, watermelon, beans, corn, potatoes, cabbage, tomatoes, and livestock. And whereas, despite the contributions of Black Americans to the development of the state of Colorado, progress for Black Americans in Colorado stalled throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Black workers in Colorado held essential but low-wage positions, and as of 1930, almost 90% of Black women in Denver worked in domestic service, and nearly 2/3 of Black men in Denver worked as laborers or slightly elevated porters. And whereas 2025 marks the 100-year anniversary of the creation of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters and Maids, the first Black union to receive a charter in the American Federation of Labor, by labor organizer and civil rights activist A. Philip Randolph, Martin Luther King Jr. incorporated issues outlined by Randolph's March on Washington movement, such as economic justice, into his Poor People's Campaign. And whereas Black veterans returning from World War II were stationed in or relocated to Colorado and used their military and job training, as well as the educational opportunities provided by the GI Bill, to fight and ensure that the values of freedom they fought for overseas would be upheld for Black people in Colorado. And whereas this generation of Black people in Colorado fought and accessed the middle class and spawned civil and elected leaders like Lieutenant Governor George Brown, Regent Rachel B. Knoll, Boulder Mayor Penfield Tate II, Representative Ari Taylor, Secretary of State Victoria Buckley, and more, all of whom committed to ensure Black people had access to education, professional jobs, business, voting, and housing across segregated lines. And whereas Tuskegee Airmen like James Reynolds led the Denver branch of the Congress of Racial Equality, or CORE, as the group organized protests from sit-ins to freedom rides across the country. And members Wilma and Wellington Webb and Anna Jo Haynes would go on to end policies rooted in racism, such as redlining and school segregation. And whereas in 1951, Colorado became the second state in the Mountain West after New Mexico to enact a fair employment law, and in 1957, the state passed a fair employment bill covering both private and public employers, placing enforcement under an independent agency, the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Commission, where Mr. Reynolds would later become a commissioner. And whereas Black Americans have focused on examining 3 particular eras of Black history to pursue enlightenment and true equality, looking to history and beliefs and values to be freed first from bondage, then to be freed from overtly oppressive laws and policies designed to separate and disenfranchise, and now presently to mitigate the impact of such laws through examining and dismantling lingering systems. And to this end, Black Coloradans continue to advocate for and pioneer equity to achieve equality for all. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 75th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the Senate concurring herein, that the General Assembly recognizes the contributions Americans of African descent have made to the development of Colorado and the United States, and that the General Assembly recognizes February of 2025 as Black History Month to celebrate the rich cultural heritage, impact, and triumphs of, and acknowledge the adversities faced as part of the African diaspora in the United States and in Colorado.
Representative Joseph.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
Thank you. As we kick off Black History Month, I want to take a moment to reflect on my own journey and the people who've shaped me. We celebrate giants of Black history, but today I want to honor someone much closer to home, my grandmother, Eda Joseph, who passed away at the age of 91 last month. Growing up, she was everything to me. She was always the first one up, getting me up, ready for the day, making sure I was fed, giving me love, and sending me off to school with a sense of purpose. She taught me early on what it means to love and to serve others, not through grand speeches, but through her actions. My grandmother didn't have a formal education, but she had wisdom beyond measure. She worked hard her whole life, selling food, eventually owning her own boutique. Through her resilience and work ethic, she showed me how important it is to contribute to your community and to never take the easy road. She also taught me about God. Through her life, I learned the value of faith, prayer, and the power of giving. And through my own service, I've been trying to get closer to God, carrying forward the lessons she instilled in me. When she passed, we honored her by fulfilling one of her final wishes, not to bury her underground, since she never liked the thought of that. It felt like the perfect tribute to a woman who spent her life lifting everyone around her. Black history is about more than the famous trailblazers and activists. It's also about the regular grandmothers, fathers, and community members raising the next generation of leaders, change makers, and visionaries. Today, I celebrate my grandmother, who in her own quiet way taught me the most important lesson in life: love, faith, service, and sacrifice. Her legacy is cemented in my service to the community, and I carry those lessons with me every day. I am proud to keep her memory and impact alive in my own work. I thank my Black grandmother for enduring and leading a gracious life. She is my role model, and she paved the way for me, and for that I'm grateful. And to all the grandmothers, all the Black grandmothers all over the world who sacrifice for their children, Black History Month is for them too. Thank you.
Representative Ricks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Black history is American history, and I rise today in strong support of this resolution to honor our past and recognize the present. Every February, we take time to reflect on the incredible contributions Black Americans have made to this country, often in the face of unimaginable obstacles. We recognize the labor that built this nation, the activism that moved it toward justice, the culture that shaped its identity, and the leaders who paved the way for all of us here today. But even as we celebrate, we must acknowledge a difficult reality. In 2025, the federal government has refused to formally recognize Black History Month. This is an unacceptable failure to acknowledge the impact that Black Americans have had in shaping every part of this country's history, from its founding to today. Our stories, struggles, and triumphs are central to the American experience, and they deserve to be recognized, not just this month, but all year long. When history is ignored, it does not disappear, but erasure has consequences. We see it when school curriculums attempt to downplay the realities of slavery and segregation. We see it in the ongoing attempts to ban books across the country, books by Black authors who write about race, gender, and identity. And we see it when people in positions of power act as though the fight for equality and opportunity is over, when that fight is far from finished. But whether or not Washington chooses to acknowledge this history, we will continue to honor it. We will continue to teach it, celebrate it, and build on the legacy of those who came before us. Because we know that the progress we have made was not inevitable. It was fought for by abolitionists who risked everything to end slavery, by the soldiers of the Civil War movement, by the activists, the lawmakers, and citizens who continue to fight for justice today. And here in Colorado, we are making history in real time. We see it in the Black business owners and entrepreneurs who are creating economic opportunity. We see it in our educators who are ensuring that future generations learn a complete account of our past. We see it in the lawmakers and the leaders and advocates who are pushing for policies that uplift Black communities. This joint resolution is a statement that Black history is not a separate history, but a fundamental part of the America's story. And it is a promise that we will not allow our contributions, our voices, our impact to be diminished. Black history matters this month and every month. I urge my colleagues to support this joint resolution and affirm that truth.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Black history is American history. I 100% agree, and we should have it fully integrated. Should be part of it. It should not be relegated to the shortest month of the year. Just want to get that out. History is a warning from the future, and if we're to learn anything from history, it's that we never learn from history, and false history leads to false lessons. While it is written by the victors and remembered by the vanquished, it is erased by those looking to repeat it. I agree. Black history should be integrated, and I fully reject the Darwinian construct of race, which is actually a phenotype. But for me today, it is difficult to consider this resolution from the majority of the body politic as this body politic endlessly imposes its aim for a more equitable servitude through ever-growing compelled labor, the abolition of private property to recreate Marx's idyllic feudal system of slavery, and the never-ending efforts of disarming its citizens. It is the imposing of overtly oppressive laws and policies designed to separate and disenfranchise in the present while condemning it in the past, promoting the slavery of equity by destroying equality under the law, and undermining the values of freedom for which our soldiers fought and died. Ironically, we are currently in the midst of the closest thing to the abolition of the Second Amendment and thereafter all the amendments, which is presented as a mere cleanup bill, which historically are a prelude to the mopping up of historic genocides. Another famous historical gentleman observed any unarmed people are slaves and are subject to slavery at any moment. If the guns are taken from out of the hands of the people and only the pigs have guns, then off to the concentration camps, the gas chambers, or whatever the fascists in America have come up with. One of the democratic rights of the United States, the Second Amendment of the Constitution, gives the people the right to bear arms. However, there is a greater right, the right of human dignity, that gives all men the right to defend themselves. Too much of what I see of Black history has devolved into a religion of victimhood, and that is upsetting. Perhaps the most pernicious idea is that whites have always been oppressors, and those of darker skin have always been oppressed, which completely ignores the Moors' conquer of Spain and rule of it for over 700 years. This perpetuation of victimhood is a form of white supremacy that robs agency as a means of escaping the cycle, except through beneficent provision in exchange for fealty. This also leads to the fool's errand of solving past racism with present racism and present racism with future racism. And we should talk about history. We should talk about how the United States there were no United States before 1789. How ending a scourge as old as history is messy, complicated, and expensive, and cost many their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. As it is considered something that needs to be dismantled, I would like to cite Frederick Douglass in his declaring, in that instrument, the U.S. Constitution, I hold there is neither warrant, license, nor sanction of the hateful thing, slavery. But interpreted as it ought to be interpreted, the Constitution is a glorious liberty document. Read its preamble, consider its purposes. Is slavery among them? Is it at the gateway? Or is it in the temple? It is neither. I think we should also talk about the many heroes of the Revolutionary War, men of color, great bravery, intellect, and strength, who were critical in the defeat of the British-imposed slavery, which was one of the Revolutionary War's primary purposes. But we need to have a unified narrative. Well, what we need to do is we need to have an unvarnished look at history, because history is messy. But we can't learn from history if we only learn a partial history. Part of what I would have changed in here is, because it talked about it, we could talk about the history of slavery began in our own region, here. Ute and Cherokee captured and enslaved members of other tribes. Spanish colonists from Cenedueva, New Mexico, 1598 to 1548, enslaved Native Americans after colonizing northward after the defeat of the Aztec Empire. Colorado became a territory in 1848, but was delayed in statehood until 1876 when it was signed in by Union General President Ulysses S. Grant. Part of the delay was because of the admirable requirement for suffrage for Americans of African descent. So I think we have a great heritage in that for Colorado. So I'm not going to talk about everything, but we could talk about how the 3/5 compromise limited Democrat representation in Congress. Slaveholders wanted a 1, abolitionists wanted a 0. That compromise allowed for the defeat of slavery with the 13th Amendment. Yet I'm often told that the 3/5 compromise is diminutive. We could discuss the eugenic vision of Margaret Sanger and her founding of the organization that has rendered over 20 million black lives into saleable and discardable parts, and continues to do so with 50% of the black pregnancies. So some might recall last year that I didn't vote for Black History Month because I felt it hypocritical to stand alongside subsidizing slavery and eco-rape in the present, and I still do. We're subsidizing on the backs of the poor, in the poorest of countries, on the backs of children, EV toys for the rich and superstitious on the backs of the working poor. EVs are subsidized at $50,000 per vehicle. The top 20% of earners get 80% of the credit. The bottom 60% get 60% of the credit. This is a form of compelled labor. And so it makes it difficult for me to stand and take this resolution seriously when we are imposing in the present what we're condemning in the past. So we asked to sign the resolution. It was rejected multiple times to protect the children, to make sure that we don't give money, we don't subsidize slavery with our Colorado tax dollars, and it was rejected. All for mathematically, and I won't go through, well, it's 10% of 0.125 over 3,200 of 40 degrees, about 1/10,000th of 1 degree Celsius. That is why this body politic is continually imposing slavery on the rest of the world and piling it onto the backs of the working class in America. So it's difficult to see this. And so what I'd like to read is from a friend who I'd love to see in one of these seats, from a proud melanated constituent who was just done with the shenanigans at our Capitol. Let's hone in on this. The crux of the issue with Black history is that we are no longer engage in learning historical achievements of black people. In 2025, the House defames black historical achievement by replacing it with Marxist ideology. Instead of supporting the black family, educational institutions, sound faith traditions, black practices, media history, political heritage, cultural norms, the Marxists are replacing those proud black cultural norms. The black family is being dismantled by trained Marxists who are against the black nuclear family. The black education traditions are being replaced with Marxist indoctrination and pitting blacks against one another in class warfare. The black faith movement of the civil rights era is being torn down and replaced with a criminality as leadership, the state as deity, and wickedness instead of good character. And anyone who opposes these is labeled racist. She goes on, what happened to MLK's dream? MLK said before he died, his dream had become a nightmare because people had not woken up to the fact that we should be judging by the content of the character instead of the color of the skin. I need desperately, she concludes, for the Black Caucus to stop giving us fake black history and giving lawmakers support, this is black Coloradans in their deserved status of equality. It is these Marxists who hold Colorado's black community back from their rights by fighting against laws of liberty, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is kind of where I started. I am for black history. I'm against these so-called policies that violate the spirit of that history, which should be taught to us. Government in Colorado serves the donor class instead of those for whom black history is supposed to honor.
Representative DeGraff,
Yes, ma'am.
you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. I could not agree more, but since it is unlikely we'll have an honest conversation, I would like to have concluded this bill with something a little more unifying, and to this end, black Coloradans continue to advocate and champion the ideas of our founding, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is only when we secure these rights for others that we can all breathe free. And the Colorado General Assembly recognizes that we cannot learn valid lessons from false or partial history, and recognizes February 2025 as Black History Month as a time to celebrate the rich cultural heritage and contributions by Americans of African descent to the cultural tapestry of Colorado and the United States. Now, take the Constitution according to its plain reading. I defy a presentation of a single pro-slavery clause. On the other hand, I will found to contain principles, purposes entirely hostile to the existence
Representative
of slavery.
DeGraff, your time has expired.
Thank you, Madam.
Representative Carter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm going to be brief. Most of you don't know what I do for a living, but in that capacity, one of the things that I give to especially the black men who I have to take care of, I try to give them something before they're going to where they're going. It was given to me as a young child, and I give it to them. So today, I'm going to give it to you. And remember, it's a gift. Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's laws wrong, it learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else cared. Thank you.
Representative English.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, just let me be clear that we as black people do not need permission to celebrate us. We don't need to be told how we can celebrate us. We don't need to be told that our history is fake and it's not real. It's offensive, to say the least. And because we are in trying political times, it is important that we, as colleagues, stand and walk in unity and speak in unity. Now, as we gather to celebrate Black History Month, which we will, just to be clear, 365 days out of the year, in spite of how anyone else may feel, we are reminded that this observance goes far beyond the narratives of slavery and segregation. See, it's more to Black people than slavery and than what you see. While we must acknowledge the painful chapters of our past and still have to walk it and live it every day, while others have never walked in the shoes of Black people, it is equally important to shine a light on the remarkable contributions of Black individuals and the profound impact we have made on our society. Black History Month is a time for us to reflect on the resilience, creativity, and achievements of Black people throughout history. It is a celebration of our culture, our triumphs, and our ongoing journey toward equality and justice. From the arts to science, from politics to activism, the contributions of Black individuals have shaped our world in ways that are both profound and transformative. As I stand before you today as the first Black woman to represent El Paso County in House District 17, I am both honored and proud. My journey is not just my own. It is a testament to the countless voices and visions that came before me. I am inspired by trailblazers who have paved the way, who fought tirelessly for justice and representation. Their courage and tenacity ignite a fire within me to continue their legacy as a transformational leader. Being a transformational leader is about more than just holding a position of power. It is about inspiring change, fostering inclusivity, and empowering those around us. And we need to be mindful to use the positions of power that we are in a meaningful way and not a reckless, despicable way. It is about ensuring that every voice is heard, every story is told, and every dream is realized. I am committed to creating a future where our community thrives through diversity, equity, and opportunity. The contributions of Black people extend far beyond the history books. We have shaped the culture landscape with our music, literature, and art. We have led movements that have changed the course of history, advocating for civil rights, social justice, and equality. Our innovations continue to drive progress in science, technology, and entrepreneurship. As we celebrate Black History Month, let us honor not only the struggles, but also the triumphs. Let us recognize the power of our narratives and the strength of our community. Together, we can continue to build a future that reflects the values of justice and equality for all. As we honor the legacy of those who have come before us, let us also recognize the responsibility that lies ahead. Each of us has a role to play in shaping our future and ensuring that achievements of Black individuals are celebrated and acknowledged year-round, not just during Black History Month. It is our duty to educate ourselves and others about the richness of Black culture, to advocate for policies that promote equity, and to uplift the voices of the next generation of leaders. Together, we can create a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive and where our diverse histories are woven to the very fabric of our collective identity. Let us move forward together, inspired by the past and committed to a brighter future for every member of our society. Thank you.
Assistant Majority Leader Bacon.
Thank you, members. I'm going to close this out today. I have some people to introduce, but I just want to share some concluding thoughts about what we heard today. I want to thank all of you who are in the room, all of you who are standing, everyone who's watching, those of you who are of African descent or not, who might be watching on the Colorado Channel. Thank you for listening today to all of it. You know, a vote for this resolution is a vote to recognize that Black history is American history. Will we need it every day and every year moving forward? Maybe not, but today we feel like our ask is that you recognize that Blackness and the labeling of that is an integral part of this country's history. The Black community suffers sometimes in that when we advocate for ourselves, people often tell us, maybe that's not the right thing to say. Maybe it's not the right time to say it. People often want to correct me on my own history and the experiences that I had. When I was in 7th grade, we read Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. And many of you read that book, so you might know where I'm going with this. For a week, I was called the N-word. And when I asked my teacher to correct it, she turned to another classmate who said, "What was so wrong with slavery? At least Africans weren't in the jungle eating berries." And I was in 7th grade, and I didn't know how to respond to that, so I went to learn different history, and I read the book Roots by Alex Haley. And in fact, we had to argue then, this is South Florida, to get that book on a reading list. We had accelerated reader. Any of you who are a millennial remember, every book you read, you got pizza points. And if you've read Roots, it's 800 pages, and I was like, I get 9 pizzas. But my mom said to me, you need to read this because the context to which Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer are rooted are one side of a history. And so that day forward, we created Black School because our books were not included. I did learn about the Moors. I learned about Mansa Musa. For every queens and kings, and I said this 2 years ago, Elizabeth and George, I had to learn a Black king or queen. And I had to teach myself. And so this resolution is to acknowledge that the history of people of African descent are deeply intertwined into what we might even call greatness of this country. Black people tested our words. The 3/5 compromise acknowledged that Black people were human enough for political capital, but they were not human enough to keep their children from being taken from them. The Dred Scott case said, the Constitution says, full and equal protection. We are endowed by a creator. And the Supreme Court said, you are property. The Constitution does not apply to you. Plessy v. Ferguson, that a man 1/8 Black cannot sit in a white train car because separate but equal is constitutional. And fast forward to the 60s, and I'll say it, where Huey said, if you are not armed, you are a slave, because the premise was, if we can be hunted down, if we can be put in shackles, if we can't vote, why not then do we get to protect ourselves? And even that tested the Second Amendment. At the end of the day, Black history is American history. And that's what we're asking you to acknowledge today. I want to end with all of those stories I told you, whether it's mine, from 3/5 to Plessy to Dredd to Dr. King. I want to say these words that these lives and these stories are not radical. These lives and these stories are not wasted or wasteful in school. And there seems to be a tension right now, whether we will celebrate diversity, equity, inclusion, remove Black History Month, even though the president signed acknowledgement of that yesterday. But what we are asking is an acknowledgement that Black history is all of our history. And until we get to that place where we see it every day, we will always stand up here. Dr. King said, "I may not get there with you, but I have seen the promised land." And this is the one thing I do know: he would never deny how we got to the promised land. And so with that, members, thank you for listening today. This is it. This is what we are debating. But I hope, again, that you support and that Colorado stands resolute in recognizing all of what we have to contribute. And that there is no America that is great without Black people. There is no America that is great if it denies what happened to Black people. And that is what we are asking for today. I'd like to end, Madam Speaker. I want to thank you all for standing. Every year we ask our community members and trailblazers to come and hear this resolution so we can acknowledge what they did for our state. With us here today, we have Anna Jo Haynes, who was named in the resolution a member of CORE, but also contributed to the ending of redlining here in Denver. We have the Honorable Terrence Carroll, the first Black Speaker of the House. We have the Honorable Rosemary Marshall, former Representative, House District 8. We have the Honorable Leslie Herod, who is first noted as an African American in leadership with her service at Joint Budgets Committee. We have Malik Robinson here on behalf of Cleo Parker Robinson, who brought the African American art experience to Denver. She has been honored with a Kennedy Award. Thank you. We have Patricia Duncan, the sister of the late Victoria Buckley, the only African American woman to serve in office. She was a Republican. And we have her here today. Her service was indelible to Colorado and Black history. And so I want to thank you all for being here today. I hope that this Block Caucus has represented our communities well. And I hope today our colleagues acknowledge that as well. Thank you all for your service to the state, to this nation. Thank you for being here today. Thank you, colleagues, for hearing us and considering we urge an aye vote on this resolution.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1009. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Brooks votes yes. Representative Ricks. Please close the machine. With 64 ayes, 0 no, and 1 excused, House Joint Resolution 1009 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Members, we will stand in a 5-minute recess so that we may greet our guests. Members, let's take our seats. We do have business. Members, let's finish up our quick hellos with our guests. We do need to get to business. Thank you. The House will come back to order. Members, we are moving on to third readings. I will ask you to take your seats. Madam Majority Leader. Oh, sorry. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1077.
House Bill 1077 by Representatives Leader and Ricks, also Senator Roberts, concerning requirements for individuals who work on backflow prevention devices and in connection therewith, removing the licensure requirements for individuals who inspect, test, or repair the devices.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1077 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1077 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Brooks votes yes. Members, You all can help remind Story and Garcia, $4 fine for each. They are excused. Please close the machine. With 62 ayes, 0 no, and 3 excused, House Bill 1077 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title to House Bill 1035.
House Bill 1035 by Representative Pascal, also Senator Weissman, concerning changes to the Collaborative Management Program.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1035 on third reading and final passage.
Representative Pascal.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. It's a pleasure to serve with you.
It is a pleasure to serve with you.
I wanted to return to the issue of the amendment that was raised during committee on behalf of stakeholders. This is the amendment that talks about the release of medical records. The intent, the goal of this amendment was to state that no changes being brought forward by this law, new bill, changes anything about individuals' rights in terms of their ability to release their medical records. That includes all ages. Currently in law, children under the age of 12 have no ability to release their own records. They have no ability to consent on their own to medical treatment. So the goal is not to change that. I realize there has been confusion and concern about the language in this amendment. So seeing as we can't amend it here, what we're going to do is go forward, work on an amendment to clarify the language to state exactly what the goal is, that nobody's rights are changed by this bill with respect to releasing medical records. And that will be crafted by stakeholders. It will be introduced by the Senate sponsor, and of course we welcome your feedback on that. I ask for an aye vote on this bill.
Representative Bradley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the bill sponsor for hearing my concerns after everything that happened. We can make an amendment, or we can have a motion to refer this back to seconds. This is a second bill that we're sending to the Senate to clean up our mess. And I don't understand, in the area of good governance, why we keep doing that, referring it to the Senate to have the Senate now clean up the mess that was created with this bill. The amendment really, to be quite honest with you, has nothing to do with the bill. The bill is about collaborative management programs. The bill is, or this program has been going since 2004. And so I don't understand, again, why we don't just refer this back to seconds, clean it up here, and then let's move on unanimously. This is the second time we're doing this. It seems like we're adding more work, and again, I don't want to hear any hissing when it comes back because we've asked the Senate to do our work. I offered a fair amendment to this, a very fair amendment. I found something that was given to me at the last minute in committee. We moved on to the next bill. I went home, I digested it like we're all supposed to do, and then I went to the bill sponsor. It was in a last-minute amendment, or we would have gotten it the night before. It's not a big deal. We have a lot of freshman legislators. I get it. I do things on the fly, too. Half the time, I don't call the person up there by the right name. I understand. But when it's digested, and I come to the well multiple times to be heard by all of you and offer a solution to this amendment, it could have been done the other day. And all this could have been taken care of. Now we have multiple lawsuits by parents who are tired of their parental rights being usurped. I know 4 right now that are going to cost the state millions of dollars. And it's going to keep happening because parents like me aren't going to let legislators legislate our parental rights. We're not going to do it. And we're going to keep suing until you guys get the point that we're not going to allow it to happen. We have bills, we have made laws over children's brain development. We have said at this well that their brains don't develop till 23, and that's when we pass gun bills. But for other things, the brain develops apparently now at 12. So I'm just trying to figure out which one it is, because it seems very hypocritical to our constituents out there. Which time does the brain develop? Because I just was in committee with adolescent psychiatrists that say the brain doesn't develop till 25. On the record said, doesn't develop till 25. So we have bills and laws protecting kids from cigarettes, 18. We have bills to protect them from vaping, or laws. We have laws, well, not protecting them against porn because they can access that anyway, but alcohol, military duty, tattoos. My son went the other day to Petco to buy a betta fish. And apparently in the state of Colorado, you can't buy anything alive until you're 18 or above. So we have bills protecting betta fish. But for some reason, we have an amendment that says, upon the written consent of the child, youth, or family receiving services. And so I came up here to change that amendment to parent or legal guardian of the child, youth, or family. And I just want to go through a couple of Colorado revised statutes. Let me just tell you, in section 14-13.5-102, in section 14-13-102, in section 19-2.5-102, in section 19-5-213.5, in section 18-6-403, Colorado defines a child as a person under 18 years of age. This amendment is not right for this bill. This bill should be referred back to seconds. If you Google search child, a human being below the age of puberty, son or daughter of any age, immature or irresponsible person, everyone under 18, a child is someone 4 to 12 years of age. A young person, especially between infancy and puberty. Colorado defines a minor as a person under 21 years of age. So when you come up here and tell me that this doesn't open it up to people under the age of 12, you're not being truthful, because Colorado statute says it does. This bill needs to be referred back to seconds. We should not be allowing anyone under the age of 12 to provide written consent per the amendment, written consent of the child, youth, or family receiving services. That is not okay. We are taking it too far. We need to clean up the language and not have the Senate do our work for us. Thank you.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaker, my apologies. So, the plain wording, whatever the intent is, nothing in this section prohibits the release of records created by the individualized service and support team upon the written consent of the child. So nothing prohibits the release of the records upon the written consent of the child. That's pretty clear. Whether that was the intent or not is not clear. A child less than 26, less than 21, less than 25, less than 11. A youth less than 21, less than 19, somewhere between the ages of 9 and 21, less than 21, 5 years or older, less than 21, 18 years of age or younger, a person who is 21 years or younger but older than 18 years, individual is at least 8 years. So we have any age, 5 down to any age, and then we have family. Individuals such as an individual spouse, parents, descendants of either or such parents, such spouse or the spouses, any individual, an individual, individual spouse, any dependent child of the individual, means the interdependent group of persons that consists of parent, child, sibling, grandparent, uncle, aunt, spouse, or any combination of thereof. I'm not sure what combinations there would be there, but, and family member with intellectual or developmental disability. That's in section, Title 25. So the closest to Title 24, I think, is where we're defining this. Child and youth and family are not defined in the Collaborative Management Program, Article 1.9 of Title 24, which is what the language is highlighted in this bill. So there's lots of places where these terms are. And then if you look at the housing rules from last year, which I think is in section 21, I don't have that printout, but when I looked at it earlier, it's just a group of people that are closely associated. So I'm not convinced that this is benign enough to let it leave this floor. And I'll just make a motion. Well, do you have anything to say? I'll let my colleagues speak.
Representative Bottoms.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to, I've enjoyed having some conversations with our freshman legislators because I am a seasoned veteran now. And here's some of the basic things that we talk about is if there's an ambiguous statement in a bill, and doesn't matter who comes to you and says, oh no, it means this. You read the language and that's what it means. This is something that we're putting into law, and so that's what it means. If it's in black and white, that's what it means. If it's not, it doesn't matter who argues for it, against it, or tries to say it says something else. It means what it says in the wording. If there is not certain carve-outs that are put in there, like a child under 12 should be included in this, or a child under 18, it doesn't say that, then that means it includes children under 12. It doesn't matter what anybody comes up here and says. It doesn't matter how the conversations they have with you. It's in black and white in the bill. That's what it is. And here's another thing that I've explained to some of our freshmen is we never, ever in this house, leave something vague, hanging off the end, ambiguous, expecting the Senate to take care of it. And if you're a freshman, ask any of the veterans in this room, and if they're honest with you, that's what they will tell you. We have a strict culture against that in this House.
Representative Bottoms, I appreciate this focus on process, and I've tried to give latitude given that it was an amendment that came forward that we are talking about. I'll ask you to get back to the bill now. Thank you.
So, talking about all this process, directly dealing with this amendment says, we don't leave amendments hanging to go to the Senate. That's what was just said from this well. That's why I'm saying these words, is because that's what was said. And so we do not leave stuff hanging going to the Senate. We all know that in this room. You guys know this, both sides of the aisle. This is bad policy, bad procedure, and we need to make sure that we stay consistent, because how do we know what the Senate's going to do? Every time they do something, we hiss and make noises in here because we didn't like it or we don't agree with it. That applies to this right here. This literally is allowing children under 12 to be included in this language, and there's nothing that disagrees with that. And so we need to be good legislators and go with good governance and actually go with what the bill says by the presenter of the bill, what the words say, not what the people say, but what the words say. And we need to strongly stand against anything that allows a child under 12 to be giving out medical records and things like that. It doesn't make sense. So, thank you.
Assistant Minority Leader Winter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I think you can see how hard we fight for parental rights and how fiercely we fight for parental rights within my caucus. Those of you that are parents, I've got 2 young daughters, and I do everything in my power. I mean, from the minute they were born, my oldest daughter always had a health condition, and me and my wife used to take turns sleeping on the floor next to her bed, and we put our hand on her to make sure she wasn't having a seizure. I love my kids. And I want my kids to grow up to be adults that are pragmatic thinkers, that can make good decisions. But at the end of the day, having parental rights is important. Having the ability to help nurture your child, help your child grow, and help them make decisions in that process, I think, are ultimately important. We've been discussing rights in this building, and last year one of the things I said was even though I do disagree with some of the stuff that comes out of this building, say my daughter found herself in a situation and she has decided that she wanted to do what she wanted to do, and after all the counseling I could give her, after all the talks I could give her, she's her own person and I couldn't stop her from doing what she wants to do. But say she did that without me knowing and there was an emergency. Say something bad happened to my daughter and I had no clue. I mean, as a parent, that's scary. I think that should scare anybody. I mean, my daughter's 16 years old. I live in a rural county, and actually this weekend she was upset at me because I'm like, you got to text me every hour because Dad needs to know where you're going to be. And as a father, that doesn't change in this building either. Sometimes we have to be pragmatic, and sometimes as we march forward and we charge forward for the things that we fight for, I think sometimes all of us do this. We lose sight of the unintended consequences, or we lose sight of the what-ifs or the what-haves. And are there bad actors? Are there horrible parents? Yeah. I'm not going to say there's not. But for every horrible parent, there's probably 50 good parents that would support their child, that would help their child through this problem. I'm unabashedly pro-life, but if my daughter come into a situation where she thought that it was going to affect her life, after all the praying I could do, the counseling, at the end of the day, she looked at me and says, Dad, I want to be there, whether I agree with it or not. And I think that's why my caucus so fiercely fights for those rights. We love our children. It isn't that we're trying to stop our children or control our children. It comes from a place of love. It doesn't come from a place of control. And I think that gets lost in the conversation here. We had a representative last year who talked about her childhood and how horrible it was and how overbearing her parents were. But for every one parent like that, there's 10 good parents. So as we debate this bill, my friends have talked about the piece that's more technical, an amendment that's more technical. But I just want to clear the air for myself and my caucus. This comes from a place of love. We love our children. For us, being able to help your children through these decisions is common sense, and I think that's lost a lot in the world today. But I will always fight for my children, whether I agree with them or I don't. But I think that I should be part of that process. And I think that that check and balance of my kid having to come home and say, Dad, I want to turn over my records for this reason. I think I should be able to have that discussion with them. Dad, I want to go through this procedure. I think I should be able to have that discussion with them. I mean, how many times have we heard people say that my kid can't even pick what shoes to wear for the day or their socks don't match? And then we put these huge decisions in their hands without those parents that have loved them since the day they were born to look at them and say, maybe you should at least think about this, or what about this consequence, or what about this unintended consequence? And as we move forward, please know that I think that everybody in this room really comes here with the best of intentions. I don't think there are very, very few that may not. And sometimes, and like my good friend from El Paso County says, sometimes the road to hell is paved in good intentions. Some of this stuff we won't know for 20 or 50 years. Half of us will be dead and gone. Nobody will remember who we were. But I always want to be on the right side of history with things. And I think that today, standing up for parental rights, standing up with the ability to help my child through times where they need the counseling of their father, the one that's loved them and nurtured them from day one, is important. Enough of the mushy stuff. One thing I do want to talk about is last year in this building, numerous times we called on each other to be consistent. We've both used the argument. I'm not going to say we haven't. But please, as we talk, this is early in the year, let's be consistent. If we're going to talk about development of brain and age that people should be able to do things, I ask that we stay consistent in that argument, because are we being true to ourselves if we're not being consistent? I just don't think that we can do that anymore. I think people are paying attention. You know, we always say for the thousands and millions of people. Well, guess what? I have people in my district that are emailing me and saying they're listening to committee all the time. So I ask my colleagues this. Instead of using this as a political football like we do, let's be consistent. And when we have these conversations, instead of looking like we're throwing in each other's face, conversations are hard. So let's be consistent. And for those reasons, I will not be able to support this bill, and I will vote no, and I urge you to do the same. Thank you.
Representative DeGraff, this is your second time to speak to the bill. You have 7 minutes, 3 seconds remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Words mean things. The words in this bill mean things. What doesn't mean things is the intent of what went behind the words in this bill. Now, I don't know what stakeholders wanted these words in the bill to simply reassert that nothing changed about the bill, because it is weird that child, youth, and family are not defined in this section. So they have a meaning, but they're not defined. And we've gone over the numerous definitions that we have. So words mean things. Nothing in this section prohibits the release of records created by individualized. So why would we put that in there? Why add something to law for the intent of saying it doesn't change anything about the law? One thing that we know is that if it can be weaponized, it will be weaponized. I don't know how these words cannot be weaponized. Be weaponized against a child. Be weaponized against a youth. Be weaponized against a child or youth by someone who defines themselves as family. So we need to have tight processes. We need to honor the people in the gallery, a gallery that was built for oversight, so they can see how this process is made, is done. So, like I said, I am curious about what stakeholders really wanted this amendment and what was the rationale behind it. But ultimately, it doesn't matter, because the intent behind it really doesn't matter. I have sat here and listened to people on this floor say, well, I hope that wouldn't happen. We would hope that wouldn't happen when we say this is the obvious outcome. And when the outcome is evident, the intent is inferred. And if we're going to keep this language in, then that's the intent. The intent is that it will be weaponized against children. So if we're going to open this up where 12-year-olds, not even 12-year-olds, but 5-year-olds can make adult decisions, are we going to honor that when we start talking about the Second Amendment? I'm guessing not. So I would like to be consistent, like my colleague said. I would like to have some idea, because as you can see, where you would think that child, youth, and family have some commonality to them, there are, I don't know, I probably have at least maybe close to 100 different references where they're used, and many of them are different and contradictory. So if we're going to put this in the hands of children, we should probably know what a children is. We should probably know what a youth is. And we should probably know who family is, because if you look at it, you can find close family, but as far as an actual definition of family, not so tight. This is an easy solve. This is an easy solve. The sponsor has basically told us that this amendment from committee is not necessary, because all it does is state that nothing in the law changes. So if this amendment only states that nothing in the law changes, then we can get rid of it. And it's easy to get rid of, because all we have to do is return to seconds. We return to seconds. You can vote down the committee report. Quick, easy, end up with a bill where it doesn't matter. Or you leave in the language that can intentionally be weaponized against children. So those are your options. We return to seconds, or we pass through a bill that could pass through the Senate that can be weaponized against children, youth, and families. So with that, I recommend that I move that we return House Bill 25-1035 to seconds.
That is a proper motion. Minority Leader Puglisi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to kind of clarify why this is so important to us. And I want to say I do appreciate the bill sponsor getting up here, explaining the amendment, explaining what amendment will come in the Senate. But we've been here before. Our side has been here where we were promised amendments in the Senate that didn't quite go the way that we anticipated it would, right? Because we're the House and we can't control the Senate. And so I think that there's some hesitation in a real desire to align with what the sponsor is saying. You're saying, hey, I'm just gonna align this with what current existing statute is. That makes sense. Regardless, and we'll talk about why we don't like the existing statute, but it is existing statute. And so for us, we have a hard time understanding why we can't do that now. And so I just want to put some clarity around that issue and allowing something to leave the House in a form that we can't vote for. I will say I can't vote for this. And I used to oversee the Child Welfare Allocations Committee for the state. I worked with the Office of Children, Youth, and Families. I understand collaborative management programs. We have some county commissioners on my side who also understand that this is a necessary part of human services, and cleaning it up is a good idea. I think where our angst is trusting the Senate to do it right, to do it the way that we have just talked about, to do it the way that the sponsor, because we all know once it leaves here, it takes on a different form sometimes in the Senate. It just does. I've seen that on my bills as well. My daughter has a rare genetic disorder. She's one of 8 girls in Colorado that has this rare genetic disorder. And there's a lot of you who have met my daughter. She is incredibly smart and incredibly strong. And if you were in my house this weekend, because she follows me, she would tell you why she could override my decision on something I told her no to this weekend because, quote, the state of Colorado says I can make these decisions, Mom. So that's something I gotta work on. But the reality is, it is hard for us parents. My daughter doesn't know what her condition is. She doesn't know what her medication is. She can't remember to refill her medication on her own. And when she turned 12, I was denied full and complete access to her medical records. I have a fundamental issue with that, which isn't your issue, but it is an issue for our caucus. It is an issue around parental rights and making sure we can make those decisions. And so we are sensitive to the language because of those things, because we want to protect our children. We want to make those decisions. And I know I'm not the only one in this room that has issues around parental rights, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. Making sure you can raise your kids in the way that they need to be raised is something we fundamentally believe in. I think we all fundamentally believe in that. The law is the law, and I understand that. We have angst in allowing the Senate to fix some language that would just make it clear that the law is the law. And so I think that's where my caucus is coming from. That's why they're saying, hey, let's just bring this back to seconds. We have a minute. Let's just fix it and make sure it's fixed in the way we all think it should be fixed. And then we can send it to the Senate, and then it flies through with no pomp or circumstance. I think that's what my caucus is saying. And I think that's the message that we are trying to say is we're happy to work with you to make this a better bill, but let's do it in the House and not give it to the Senate to do. So with that, I would support the motion of my colleague to refer this back to seconds. Let's just get the language right and then send it off to the Senate so the rest of this good work can be done. Thank you.
Representative Pascal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for a no vote on this request. Thank you.
Representative DeGraff, this is your second time to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Recommending a no vote is really troublesome because there is no guarantee here that the Senate is going to fix this problematic language, which means that a vote for this bill is okay with language that will victimize children, that will victimize youth. That's what the vote is. It's not a process vote. It's saying, it's taking the intent and saying, I am okay with the possibility that the Senate will also pass along legislation with the very real possibility of victimizing children. It's nothing personal. That's just the language. So if you're okay with language that I do not see how it cannot be weaponized against children, creating victims out of children and youth, if you're okay with the victimization of children and youth, send it on. See what happens. Maybe the Senate will fix it. But what if they don't? What if they don't? What you're saying, if you don't send it back to seconds, is that you don't care if they don't. You don't care if we send out language that can be weaponized against children. You don't care.
Representative DeGraff, probably best we not speak to how people feel or how they care. Just to the bill. Thank you.
You would be voting?
To the motion, forgive me, to the motion.
Denying this motion, denying the opportunity to refer it to seconds and remove the language that potentially victimizes children, the very real possibility that it victimizes children, is to approve language that victimizes children. So I'm asking you to approve the bill, to approve this motion, send it back to seconds, we remove the problematic language here, and we take away that opportunity, that risk, that chance for children to be victimized. That's all. Easy. If it had gone back and it came forward, we'd pretty much be done. It's victimizing children, not victimizing children. That is the question.
Representative Bottoms. Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is to refer House Bill 1035 to seconds for consideration of a substantial amendment. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Brooks votes yes. Please close the machine. With 22 aye, 42 no, and 1 excuse, the motion is lost. The motion before us, Representative Bottoms. This is your second time to speak to the bill. You have 6 minutes and 41 seconds remaining.
So that we can, thank you, Madam Speaker, so that we can help clarify the language and not try to leave that up to the Senate. I move Amendment L00. I ask for permission to move Amendment L005.
Members, we will stand in just a brief recess. The House will come back to order. Members, this is just a point of clarification. The initial motion is to request permission from the body to run an amendment, not the actual amendment or its number. Representative Bottoms, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to request to run a amendment.
Briefly explain.
The amendment basically is defining family, and as we said earlier, if we're just going to kick this to the Senate and let them figure this stuff out, it'd be better if we had this already defined for them by the time we got there. And so I would like to run an amendment that is just putting a definition in there.
Thank you. Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As used in subsection of this, family means the biological or adoptive mother or father of the child or youth or legal guardian of the child or youth. Why would we not want to?
Representative DeGraff, we are simply speaking to a request to run the amendment, not an amendment itself. I did allow Representative Bottoms to briefly explain.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. My apologies. I recommend yes on allowing us to clean up some of the language in this bill.
Representative Pascal.
I request a no on the request to add an amendment. This is not the time to make a substantive change.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is permission to run a third reading amendment on House Bill 1035. Mr. Shebo, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Brooks votes yes. Please close the machine. With 21 aye, 43 no, and 1 excused, the motion is lost. The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1035 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Shebo, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Brooks votes no. Please close the machine. With 40 aye, 24 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1035 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebo, please read the title of House Bill 1050.
House Bill 1050 by Representative Garcia, also Senator Amabile, concerning an exception to the requirement that a county with a population of 2,000 or more maintain its own county jail for a county that enters into an intergovernmental agreement with a multi-jurisdictional county jail.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1050 on third reading and final passage.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1050 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Shebo, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Brooks votes yes. Please close the machine. With 59 aye, 5 no, 1 excused, the bill is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebo, please read the title to House Bill 1081.
House Bill 1081 by Representatives Martinez and Soper, also Senator Weissman, concerning reporting statistics on restitution payments.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1081 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1081 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Shebo, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Brooks votes no. Please close the machine. With 44 aye, 20 no, 1 excused, House Bill 1081 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to House Bill 1034.
House Bill 1034 by Representatives McCormick and Garcia-Sander, also Senators Doherty and Liston, concerning amendments to the dangerous dog statute.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1034 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1034 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Brooks votes no. Please close the machine. With 56 aye, 8 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1034 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to House Bill 1003.
House Bill 1003 by Representatives Stewart R. and Brooks, also Senator Cutter, concerning a Medicaid waiver program for children with complex health needs.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1003 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1003 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
Madam Speaker, thank you. Proudly yes.
Representative Brooks votes yes. Please close the machine. With 64 ayes, 0 no, 1 excused, House Bill 1003 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to House Bill 1024.
House Bill 1024 by Representatives Wilford and Bradley, also Senator Roberts, concerning requiring a medical professional to disclose certain information to patients if the medical professional delegates medical aesthetic services to an individual who is not a licensed healthcare provider.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1024 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1024 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Brooks votes no. Please close the machine. With 60 aye, 4 no, and 1 excused, House Bill 1024 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Mr. Shebel, please read the title to House Bill 1085.
House Bill 1085 by Representatives Lukens and Johnson, also Senators Roberts and Pelton R., concerning public hospital boards of trustees.
Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move House Bill 1085 on third reading and final passage.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of House Bill 1085 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Brooks votes yes. Rep. Clifford. Please close the machine. With 64 ayes, 0 no, 1 excused, House Bill 1085 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the following bills be made special orders on February 3rd, 2025 at 11:53 a.m. House Bill 1025, House Bill 1030, House Bill 1075, and House Bill 1006.
Seeing no objection, the bills listed by the Majority Leader will be made special orders on February 3rd, 2025 at 11:53 a.m. Representative Clifford.
Madam Speaker, I move the House now resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special orders.
Members, you have heard the motion. Seeing no objection, Representative Clifford will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there's a request for reading of a bill at length. Committee reports are printed in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPad. Representative Frey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 25-1025 to second reading. So this bill will allow for the Director of Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management or a designated authority to access the supply cache during non-emergent times so they can be distributed before they expire into the community and not into the trash. All right. Yeah, it's on my desk on the, like, where the trash is. I thought you just printed extra. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. They have to display it, so give them a second for them to put it up, and then you can tell them. Okay. They don't, she's waiting for the packet. It's not where we printed. Who went to get it? Martinez went to grab it. It is coming. Thank you. Sorry, I thought they were extra.
That amendment has been properly displayed. Raise your hand. To the amendment. Rep. Frey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment will help ensure accountability of distribution through the consultation of CDPHE. It will also allow us to distribute to tribal governments. Right now, tribal governments are getting access to emergency equipment through third parties. This allows for a better relationship with the tribal governments in times of disaster and non-emergent times.
Is there further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment passes. To the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I request an aye vote of House Bill 25-1025 as amended.
Representative Luck.
Do I stay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I heard this bill in committee, and I want to say that there are two particular buckets that are being considered here. And the first bucket I am wholeheartedly in agreement with. Basically, what the intention is to allow for any emergency equipment, PPE, that's about to expire or has expired to be distributed out to other groups that could use that, and instead of going to a landfill. I think that that is good use of resources. And as I told the bill sponsor, I'm not particularly concerned about where that goes. It could go to a 6th grade class for a craft project if it's expired, or to different nonprofits, emergency service facilities, etc. If it's going to be used, it far surpasses the environmental damage it would do, as well as just the waste to put it in a landfill. My concerns are as relates to the second bucket. The second bucket is basically a broadening of authority to our executive branch such that they are able to acquire resources to then distribute those resources as they see fit, as relates to public safety. The specific language in the bill says that it can be distributed for other circumstances in a way that would help protect public health or safety. So not just in emergency situations, but for any and all other circumstances. And I am grateful because the bill sponsor had conversations with me and tried to work to be able to assuage my concerns. Unfortunately, I'm not there. I know that the amendment she just passed was in an attempt to get me there, to put up some guardrails to help to ensure that there was transparency and accountability. But I am still in the position of believing that it is too broad of authority that we are granting to the department or to the executive branch to be able to acquire these materials and then distribute them. One of the examples that was given in committee by the director was an example wherein I guess a nonprofit in Centennial is focused on providing medical care abroad, and that these materials could go there. I do believe, or at least I hope, that he was meaning only as relates to the expired products, but that wasn't actually stated, and this bill doesn't do anything to actually preclude that. It doesn't say anything about whether or not those nonprofits or other groups, when they're getting non-expired or non-close to expired goods, could sell them or how they need to distribute them. And there's just a lot of things with that second bucket that I have concern with. And so for that reason, I am a no. But I do, again, want to put on the record how grateful I am to the bill sponsor for being willing to have these conversations and to try to get me to a yes. Thank you.
Representative DeGraff.
Just a lot of, thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a lot of the same when we look at a process that has a lot of other circumstances, in a way that would help public health or safety. Distribution essential materials for the purpose of ensuring that they can be used in normal non-emergency times before they're useful. And that's a great example. That's a great way to present, to make sure that these materials get used usefully. But there's just a lot there as far as other circumstances and what they can be used for. So I'd like to see that tightened up a little bit. That because we have an emergency response, we don't have emergency response and other things. I think a better way to do this would be to essentially have a warehouse just in time, discounted materials, Be happy to talk to the bill sponsor on that, or the somebody advocate, the lobbyist last time. I think we could do this a lot more effectively. Keep stockpiles rotated, save these individual organizations money, and while saving the taxpayer money. Because here we're just going to be buying a lot of stuff and then just keeping it on a continual purge. The state is not allowed to sell the items, so we're just going to be continually funding other people and other organizations. And we could do that a lot more effectively if we just ran a flow-through like a warehouse just in time. I mean, Costco does it, Sam's does it. You're familiar with these items, with these processes that would actually keep the stockpile fresh, save these agencies money, and then save the taxpayers money. Right now, I just see a lot of open-ended. I don't see the taxpayers being saved money in this, so I'd have to be a no.
Representative Herzog.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks sponsors for bringing this. So a couple questions. Seeing as how I spent the latter part of my 26-year military career working in emergency response and worked with many, many states on fires, floods, hurricanes. Areas that have, or states that have it routinely, they have a much tighter system of how they do this. So a couple questions. On your bill summary, bullet number 2, it says, after the governor's declared emergency, then we do things. Most states, we're looking at being more proactive, so we're rotating everything in stock. Everybody's used to it. The 4th bullet, when the director or the director's designee says their distribution will enhance the ability, that's then throwing everything very subjective. Usually, from what I've seen, states specify, here's condition A, then you do step B. Condition B, you do step C. I would ask either we look at that as an amendment, and I'm happy to work with you, or get back to the details so we can make sure we get it done right and make sure that it's our job. Thanks so much.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1025. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is passed. Mr. Schiebel, please read House Bill 1030.
House Bill 1030 by Representative Joseph, also Senators Cutter and Winter, concerning the requirement that certain building codes have accessibility standards that are at least as stringent as international building codes.
Representative Stewart.
Mr. Chair, I move House Bill 1030 and the committee report of the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee.
To the committee report. Representative Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 1030 simply requires that if and when a building code update comes before a municipality that is substantial, that they also update their accessibility standards to one of the 2 most recent international building code standards. And I urge an aye vote.
Representative Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add that the committee report, we just made some very, very simple amendments just to clarify some language, and also at the behest of some of our stakeholders to ensure that small changes are not seen as substantive changes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. We are on the committee report. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before us is the passage of the committee report to House Bill 1030. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The committee report is passed. To the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do also have an amendment to the bill, which is L002. I move L002 and ask that it is properly displayed.
That is a proper motion.
Sorry about that.
The committee will stand in a brief recess. The committee will come to order. Representative Joseph.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I move to withdraw the motion.
The motion is withdrawn. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1030 until tomorrow.
House Bill 1030 will be laid over until tomorrow. Mr. Shee will please read the title of House Bill 1075.
House Bill 1075 by Representatives Garcia Sander and Phillips, also Senator Kirkmeyer, concerning regulation of speech-language pathology assistance.
Representative Garcia Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1075 and the Business Committee report.
That is a proper motion. To the committee report. Representative
Well, which one of those? Raise your hand.
Phillips. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's an honor to serve with you.
It is an honor to serve with you.
This bill did pass out of committee 13-0 bipartisan. It was originally about regulation, and then we made it not about regulation. And can I defer? How do I? And what? Oh, and there's no fiscal note. Do you want to say the piece? No? And I asked for an aye vote. And it's my first time here.
Welcome. Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the committee report to House Bill 1075. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report is passed. To the bill. Representative Garcia Sander.
Thank you. That's what you get when you have two newbies up here.
This is perfect.
1075 passed Business Committee unanimously. The bill has no fiscal note. Currently, SLPAs, speech-language pathology assistants, cannot practice outside the school setting, thereby limiting their workforce opportunities. This bill will allow SLPAs to practice in any settings and establishes education requirements and qualifications. Given the shortages in this health profession, we find this bill is an important first step to addressing those shortages. And I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1075. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill passes. Mr. Schiebel, please read the title of House Bill 1006.
House Bill 1006 by Representatives Lukens and Hartsook, also Senator Bridges, concerning allowing a school district to lease district property for any term of years.
Representative Lukens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1006 and the Education Committee report.
To the committee report. Representative Lukens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We added a quick amendment to this bill. It was just to add the words energy storage system so that schools should be allowed to feed the grid on demand, not just when it's sunny. So we ask for a yes vote on the Education Committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the committee report to House Bill 1006. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The committee report passes. To the bill. Representative Lukens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will explain the bill in a minute. I would like to add one amendment first. So I move L003 to House Bill 1006 and ask that the amendment be properly displayed.
That is a proper motion. The amendment has been properly displayed. Please explain the amendment, Representative Lukens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. L003 is an amendment that was drafted after conversations in the Education Committee last week. Basically, there was robust conversation about affordable housing and whether or not school districts should be engaging in affordable housing conversations. And so what we agreed on after more conversations with committee members and stakeholders is that should a school district want to engage in affordable housing conversations, they should first develop a policy that defines affordable housing for the project, and that would be specific to each individual school board, so it's kind of a local control take on school boards having a local or having an affordable housing policy that's specific to that school district and that school board. We ask for a yes vote on L003.
AML Bacon.
Thank you to the sponsors for those of you who are listening to this riveting amendment. I just wanted to share a little bit in committee. Some of us are former and recovering school board members, and we remember a time when people didn't like some of the decisions that we made, and so this amendment comes from some of that conversation in committee. It is very helpful to guide school districts to create a definition of what affordable housing is, because there are about 10 definitions of affordable housing across statute, and so this is requiring school districts to determine what that is so they can provide clarity to not only the taxpayers, but anybody who might want to go through a procurement process or whatnot to build. Furthermore, what the bill does is really open up a conversation on how school districts can engage in affordable housing, particularly for their teachers, because we know there's some districts where teachers cannot afford to live where they teach. So the last thing that I'll say, I do know this is on the amendment, but I'm sure no one wants to hear from me again. In regards to the bill also says that leases, that school districts can enter leases or rental agreements for longer than 10 years. And so what I raised there is the statute exists just to be sure that school districts aren't encumbered to long-term contracts for generations. And so that's why the statute exists. But this carve-out lives in a world in which when you have to enter agreements around housing and solar farms, that some of these agreements cannot be made if they are less than 10 years. And so with that, I'd like to say thank you to the sponsors for writing this amendment to provide a little bit of clarity, but I also say let's keep our eyes on this, because this is a new area of law and consideration for school districts to get into housing, but the folks who are doing it really well are up in Eagle, so just want to give a shout out to them as well. Thank you.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To me, this is still, I think it's good to tighten it up, but it's kind of a definition that leaves a definition that says by definition that you have to define the definition at some later point. And we have multiple things in order. One of them, affordable housing. It used to be that, when I look at the definition of affordable housing, it's, 33% of your income. The housing cost shouldn't be more than 33% of the income. Well, that doesn't really tie it down to anything. We're not looking at low-income housing. This is affordable housing. So, not that we need to do one versus the other. So, 33%, but then when we had the bills last year, then the only thing that you could verify was 50%. So 50% of your income is now basically affordable income, which of course puts people at more risk of a default. Now, the whole bill overall, I think, is problematic because it ties the county. But I think if we're going to tighten up a definition, we should probably actually tighten up the definition as to what we mean by affordable housing, as opposed to just saying you define. Our definition of affordable housing is whatever you define affordable housing to be. So. I don't really understand what this, perhaps some clarity, but otherwise I don't really understand what this amendment achieves.
Representative Herzog.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. So these are all great questions. Some of it was brought up in committee, and I need to tie a little bit here on the amendment that will bleed over somewhat into the discussion of the bill to understand the basis of it. What we are doing with this amendment and what the bill is doing is pushing back down to the local level, the school districts, the counties, the municipalities, that they decide. Are they valid questions as to how do you define, is it 33%, 50%? Those are all valid questions, but those are decisions that, in our opinion, for the bill and this amendment, should not be made by the state here under the Gold Dome. It should be made by the counties and municipalities across the state that have different environments, different personnel, different circumstances in their jurisdiction. And that's what we're pushing down, is to them to say, you figure out what meets your, whether it's housing costs or your energy needs. That's being done down at your level instead of the state mandating it. That's what the amendment is specifying and spelling out, that they need to figure that out, and then we'll get back to the bill when that discussion comes around. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion on the amendment, the question before us is the passage of Amendment L003 to House Bill 1006. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is passed to the bill. Representative Herzog.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now to dovetail that right back into the bill. So the purpose of this bill and the reason that we're excited about doing this, and especially on my side of the caucus, one of the things that we are always hearing, and the goal is a lot of the things we pass up here in the Gold Dome tends to be that one size fits all. And this was a uniform that was brought from a school district saying, hey, I need help because the state statute is limiting my ability to do what I want to do in my school district. I went to my school district, which is a large one in Douglas County, and they go, yeah, it sounds great. We don't have any particular use for energy or housing, but it makes sense. We ran across Case and everybody else, and that was where the one amendment came from, was to satisfy that. But the bill pushes down to local control, the local government, the local entities, that they decide how they want to implement. It has to go through their zoning regulations, their housing regulations, their affordability. All of that is done at the local level instead of under this Gold Dome here, where one size does not fit all. I would urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further, Representative Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to rise in support of this. In committee, in the Education Committee, the Assistant Majority Leader, she had a lot of concerns that I share with her about not tying the hands of future school boards by removing the cap and potentially having very long-term contracts. But what got me to the yes on this is the bottom line is it is a local control issue. It is putting that power in the hands of your school district and taking it away from the state. And we had some school boards come in and testify how this would actually help them. This would help them recruit teachers. This would help them make additional income with just empty land that's just sitting there and they can't do anything with it because they can't do any long-term contracts because of current state law that puts a cap on that. And so what it really boils down to me is anytime we can take away power from the state legislature and give it at the most local level possible, generally is a pretty good thing. So I will be a yes on this. Thank you.
Representative Bradfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mayor, somebody's called. I too would like to echo what Representative Caldwell said in our committee meeting. We were very glad to have other school districts, school boards come and testify, and this seems to be something that the community wanted. If the community doesn't want it, nobody has to do anything, and I am here in favor of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 251006. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
That is a proper motion. Seeing no objections, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Shebel, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report is under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof and making the following recommendations thereon. House Bills 1006 as amended, 1025 as amended, and 1075 as amended, passed on second reading, ordered, engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage, and House Bill 1030 as amended, laid over until February 4th, 2025.
Members, we do have an amendment at the desk. Representative Joseph.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in adapting the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Report to House Bill 25-1030, dated January 2025, to show that said report lost and that House Bill 25-1030 was laid over unamended. Please follow or lead.
Representative
Thank you.
Joseph, forgive me. I failed to have Mr. Shebel read our amendment. So let me do that now, although you did it very well. Mr. Shebel, please read the Joseph amendment.
Representative Joseph moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in adopting the Transportation, Housing, and Local Government Committee report to House Bill 1030 dated January 29, 2025 to show that said report lost and that House Bill 1030 was laid over unamended.
Representative Joseph, I just need for you to move the amendment now.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move H001 to the committee report of the whole.
Yes, and
Thank you.
this is just another point of order. You can just say I move the Joseph amendment. You don't even have to call it out, but yes, that has been moved to Committee of the Whole report and it is properly displayed. Any additional comment?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Please proceed.
Please, members, follow or lead when it comes to this amendment. What we did earlier was a bit of a procedural mistake that we made when it comes to the report. We had an amendment to the committee report, which we did not make at the time, so we have to go back and redo it again tomorrow and do it properly. So we ask that you please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Stewart, anything to add? Is there further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the Joseph Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report on House Bill 1030. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Brooks votes yes. Please close the machine. With 58 aye, 5 no, and 2 excused, the amendment passes. Seeing no further discussion, the motion before us is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Apparently, I got no sleep this weekend. I am confused. Representative Clifford, could you please repeat? Members, that is a proper motion. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Brooks, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Brooks votes no. Please close the machine. With 41 aye, 22 no, and 2 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted as amended. And members, I'm going to fine myself $4 for being asleep at the wheel today. I don't know who was cheering, but I'm going to remember. Woohoo! All right, members, announcements and introductions. Representative Weinberg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon, everybody. What a morning. We're back at it again. Valentine's Day is around the corner, and the best city in the entire state, which is Loveland. Please come by my desk, grab an envelope. We will cover all the fees, the city will, to get your postage sent out to your loved ones or your better halves. If you need more explanation as to what? You want one? This is one of the best programs. I'm pretty sure you've seen it on the news. Loveland, the sweetheart city, does an excellent job with this, and it's a cute little thing for your kids, your loved ones, and your spouses. So please come by my desk, grab an envelope. If you need more information, just ask, and I'll let you know what's going on. Other colleagues that have done this before for the past couple of years, this is a tradition that we've done in this chamber multiple times. Please continue the tradition, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Wilford.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. House State Civic, Military, and Veterans Affairs will be meeting today at 1:30 across the street at LSBA, and we'll be hearing House Bills 1082, 1083, and 1091. Also, while I have the mic, I want to just take a moment to acknowledge that I have my son Jackson here with me today, so stand up and wave.
Yay.
And I just want to express my gratitude to Majority Leader Duran for doing the work of ensuring that working parents who are also legislators have the flexibility to bring their kids to work with them. I've talked to a lot of elected leaders across the nation who don't have flexibility in terms of being able to bring their kids with them to work, step out to breastfeed or do whatever they need to do. So thank you for creating that environment for us. It really makes a difference.
Representative Bradfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do want to welcome anybody and everyone here to the Legislator Bible Study on Tuesday mornings down in the garden level, room 0109. Breakfast is served. We are always welcoming new people and love to see you there. Thanks.
Representative McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, Agriculture, Water, and Natural Resources Committee will be meeting at 1:30 in room 107 to hear House Bill 1009, 1053, 1023, and 1084.
Representative Lindstedt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Finance Committee will be meeting today at 1:30 to hear House Bills 1036, 1066, and 1071. See you there.
Representative Phillips.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to recognize Horizon High School students. They might not be here now. They'll be in committee at 1:30 to talk about identifying a state mushroom. Their teacher, Mr. Sanchez, is here today. So thank you, everybody. Thanks to Horizon High School for being here today.
Woohoo. Good stand up. Members, we have some business to tend to. Message from the Senate, Mr. Schiebel.
Madam Speaker, the Senate has passed on third reading and transmitted.
Message from the Senate will be printed in the Journal. Introduction of resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution 5 by Senators Danielson and Catlin, also Representatives Duran and Puglisi, concerning the designation of February 4th as Missing Persons Day in Colorado.
Senate Joint Resolution 5 will be laid over one day under House rule. Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move to lay over the balance of the calendar till Tuesday, February 4th, 2025.
Seeing no objection, the balance of the calendar will be laid over until tomorrow. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the House stand in recess until later today.
The House will stand in recess until later today.